Folks here in Melbourne say Lisa Montgomery was a newcomer to them. She'd only been here a couple of years and pretty much kept to herself until one day she showed up in town showing off her new baby, popping in and out of stores all over Main Street. Many would have given up or gone on to live a dark, bitter life. Tyrone moved forward. He enrolled in Penn Valley, earned a scholarship to Mizzou, and the young man who grew up on the streets even went to law school. Patrick was struggling to keep up with a full load of classes at school. His weight had dropped by 30 pounds. He dropped down to just 5 hours. The Beasleys had no idea how that would turn their lives upside down. North of the metro, almost to Iowa, barely a stop on a winding country road, you'll find Skidmore, Missouri. Like the trucks that pass through this dying town on their way to someplace else, most folks grow up and move away. But Bobby Jo Stinnett wasn't allowed to make that choice. She was taken from Skidmore, leaving behind her husband Zeb and her daughter Victoria Jo.
I said, I sure hope that nothing bad happened. And he said, well, it has. It's a homicide.
It's the case that shocked her pastor, Harold Hammond. Folks around the metro and across the country. 2 families and 2 towns brought together by one deplorable act. Now, almost 1 year later, the real story behind the lives of Bobby Jo Stinnett and Lisa Montgomery.
She's got a tomboy. She liked horses and stuff.
Gene Day is Bobby Jo's grandfather, a man of few words but lots of memories of the little girl who looked up to him as a father figure. What do you remember about that day when she got married?
I walked her down the aisle.
You did? Oh, that had to be a big honor for you.
Yeah.
Bobby Jo loved animals. She bred rat terriers. Today, 2 remain at her grandparents'. Police say it was Bobby Jo's love of dogs that connected her to Lisa Montgomery, living a quiet country life in Melbourne, Kansas, 175 miles away.
Oh, I remember the little old-fashioned girl that she was, that she portrayed herself to be.
Kay Salisbury knew a side of Lisa from the crafting talents they shared, and Lisa, like Bobby Jo Stinnett, also loved dogs. In fact, they're pictured here together after meeting briefly at a dog show. Bobby Jo and her husband Zeb on the right, Lisa second from the left. Some say this is how Lisa knew Bobby Jo was pregnant. The folks here in Melbourne say Lisa Montgomery was a newcomer to them. She'd only been here a couple of years and pretty much kept to herself until one day she showed up in town showing off her new baby, popping in and out of stores all over Main Street. But soon the truth would be obvious. Lisa fooled everyone, including her own husband.
And Kevin was just such a proud papa. Well, he had a smile on his face from ear to ear, and he just was so happy. You couldn't have got him out of the clouds for another month.
Forget a month, Kevin's happiness didn't even last 2 days.
That was a precious baby.
The baby, whom Lisa named Abigail, wasn't Kevin's. She wasn't Lisa's. She was the tiny life cut too soon from Bobby Jo Stinnett's butchered body.
It was just a traumatic thing.
On that day, last December, Bobby Jo's neighbor, Reverend Hammond, unknowingly sat about 100 yards away from the crime scene.
And I looked out the window then, and it was parked over. In fact, there was a sheriff's car, 2 or 3 cars, an ambulance, and I just figured, well, that Bobby Jo was having her baby.
The last time anyone spoke to Bobby Jo alive, a woman named Darlene was coming to buy one of her dogs. Police say Darlene was really Lisa Montgomery.
Did you know any of this was going on?
Within a day, the story of 2 mothers now included 2 grieving husbands.
Families are mighty precious to me, and I hope they are to him. He's got Zeb and Victoria Jo got a rough road to go.
Nearly a year later, Skidmore is still a quiet town. Bobby Jo's family clings to her memory, and folks say Zeb's moved on.
Zeb is doing good, and he's adapted. He's a wonderful father.
But in Melbourne,
My heartstrings just are broken for Lisa's children.
Desiree Bowman is Lisa Montgomery's oldest daughter.
Does time make it easier?
Yeah, you just kind of learn to move on, and just there's speed bumps in life and you just gotta go over them.
But there are still so many questions. For Bobby Jo's grandpa, will the pain ever go away?
You know, I still see people come down the street and think it's her.
Do you really?
Yeah.
And for Lisa's friend, what turned a Midwestern mom into an accused murderer?
It's so hard for me to think about this and think about Lisa doing something like that, because you can't be bad forever and raise children like she did.
On this corner is where I got shot at, right there.
Whether you live it or see it through the eyes of someone else,
I was told I'd be dead or in jail by the time I was 18.
life on the streets of the inner city can be hard to comprehend.
My father was murdered.
Tyrone Flowers grew up on the streets of Kansas City and saw things no child should ever see.
Bodies in Truce Lake, cars, we would see the cars floating, and then the cops would be doing their diving. Then up around the corner is where you had a large prostitution ring.
Tyrone took us to the Kansas City streets he grew up on, the same streets that his organization recruits from today.
I used to take this route to school.
He's the founder of a nonprofit organization called Higher Impact. Tyrone works tirelessly to not only change, but to save the lives of high-risk youth.
The population that I love serving are the ones that are beyond that. They've already indulged in violence and, the drugs and the gangs. They've experienced all that.
Tyrone experienced that violence, but he survived.
It's weird. I've been on this corner, and ever since.
You haven't been back on this corner since 88?
88.
May 23rd, 1988. Tyrone's life changed forever on the corner of Prospect and Swope.
The bus let out right here. I got off the bus, and then I turned around.
When Tyrone turned around, he expected to see the guy's fists, ready to fight, but he never expected what happened next.
Then he put out a .357 Magnum and shot me.
3 times, 3 bullets, which sentenced Tyrone to spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair. But while many would have given up or gone on to live a dark, bitter life, Tyrone moved forward. He enrolled in Penn Valley, earned a scholarship to Mizzou, and the young man who grew up on the streets even went to law school. Sure, he thought about retaliation, but that wasn't in the cards.
Before I got him, God got me. And, part of salvation is forgiving.
I talked to their father yesterday.
While at Mizzou, Tyrone met and married Renee, his soulmate who shares his passion and his dream.
He has a passion and a desire to help people make a difference. And that's, even when we met, that was one of the first things that he talked about, is what he wanted to do with, kids, to help kids.
Since 1993, Tyrone, Renee, and Higher Impact have been working full-time to change lives. Many times, it's as simple as showing young people like Pierre and Elijah that they have choices.
I got friends that still didn't finish high school just because they were just worried about next week.
Without choices, Tyrone teaches them their options are few, like focusing on the wrong role models, say the guy with the cool car and all the money.
I don't want to walk around and not have what he had. It's like, well, what is he doing? He's selling drugs or doing his own kind of hustle.
One at a time, Tyrone reaches out to these young men, the men who are usually down to their last 2 options.
It's death or incarceration.
And claims a life most others have written off.
What do you see in these young people?
Endless possibility. Endless possibility. I just see a bright future because I look at myself as an example. I mean, no one really claimed me until after I was 23.
When a health crisis hits someone we love, we would hope that doctors would drive their treatment, at the very least our insurance company. But what happens when the insurance company turns its back? Tonight we'll show you how one local family put it all on the line, losing their home and all their savings to save the life of their son. Here's Patrick's story. There's a sense of peace that Patrick Beasley has come to appreciate. Walk outside, no matter how cold. A mother's hug, no matter who's around. An overall love of life, no matter how hard he has to fight to live.
Lately, I've actually felt normal, and it's been a while.
At 22, Patrick should have been a senior in college now. Time for books and exams, independence and transformation. But nothing could have prepared Patrick and his family for the real-life lessons they learned over the past 2 years.
I couldn't sit through my class. It was just excruciating pain. I had to leave.
In the middle of his sophomore year, plans for a business degree came to a sudden halt when his health took a horrible turn.
It was so obvious. It was just so darn obvious. And how did the doctors and me, how did we miss it? How did we miss it?
For 10 months, doctors worked to diagnose the problem as Patrick got sicker and sicker.
It was just draining me.
By February of '06, Patrick was struggling to keep up with a full load of classes at school. His weight had dropped by 30 pounds. He dropped down to just 5 hours. The Beasleys had no idea how that would turn their lives upside down.
It's called desmoplastic small round cell tumor.
Desmoplastic small round cell tumor. a cancer only diagnosed in about 160 people worldwide.
You know it's bad. He didn't know it.
A cancer diagnosis, a serious blow, but what came next was another bombshell.
No insurance for him.
When Patrick dropped below 12 hours at Longview College, the family's insurance carrier dropped him.
My dad's insurance wouldn't pay for me. They wouldn't cover me.
The problem, his dad's insurance would only cover Patrick while he was a full-time student.
We're sick. We drop a class.
A rare cancer, no insurance, and no local doctors with the experience to fight it.
You cry into towels. You try very hard because you don't want to scare him, but you can't breathe.
The pineapple and grapefruit-sized tumors had to be removed from his stomach. They found a specialist with experience in treating this rare cancer in New York. But without proper coverage, the Beasleys would have to raise the money for Patrick's surgery themselves.
His surgery was $159,000.
To save their son's life, they sold their home and moved into a sister's basement. They emptied account after account, from savings to college funds, and then reached out to others.
We have no home. We have every dime that we've ever had, and I would do it again.
For a time, they didn't know if Patrick would make it. He seemed to get sicker before he got better, and he's still not in remission. And it seems around every corner is another setback, another round of chemo to zap his strength, and in a few weeks, a stem cell transplant scheduled in Houston.
I'm nervous. I'm scared.
The Beasleys say Patrick's cancer drained the entire family emotionally and financially, leaving them too tired to even be angry about the insurance anymore.
No, we wouldn't have had to pay for the whole surgery in New York. We still would have been financially ruined.
No matter the cost, no matter the pain, they're still grateful for what they have.
If I have another breath, I have another day to live, I have another day to dream and believe and do what I want in my life. Do whatever you want. I don't care.
He is a fighter, and we are pulling for him. So what does the insurance company have to say? Absolutely nothing. It's a trail of networks that starts with Blue Cross Blue Shield and ultimately ends with Wilson McShane, the administrator of the plan. Despite repeated attempts to get a response from Wilson McShane, they have refused to answer any questions.